My name is Avery, I am 18 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban town. It was 7 in the evening. The sun was going down behind our house. I stood in the backyard. I looked at the string lights I had hung up by myself earlier that day. They were half-lit, blinking slowly against the gray fence. On the patio table, there was a plate of cookies I had baked that morning. They were cold now. No one had touched them. The sliding glass door opened. My mother, Elise, stepped out. She didn't look at the lights. She didn't look at the cookies. She looked at her phone, then glanced at me like I was a chore she had forgotten to finish. "We canceled your birthday, Avery," she said. Her voice was flat. "Your sister is having a hard day. Miranda needs peace. We can't have people over making noise." She didn't say sorry. She didn't offer to reschedule. She just turned around and went back inside, sliding the door shut to keep the air conditioning in. I stood there alone. It was my 18th birthday. I looked at the cake I bought with my own money. I reached out and touched the unlit candles. One by one, I blew on them, pretending they were burning. With every breath, I felt something inside my chest break. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet. And I knew right then that it was permanent. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Avery. I am 18 years old. To understand why I left that night, you have to understand the house I grew up in. It was a nice house. From the outside, it looked perfect. The lawn was always cut. The windows were clean. We had 2 cars in the driveway. But inside, there was a rule that no one ever spoke aloud, but everyone followed. Miranda matters most. Miranda is my sister. She is only 2 years older than me, but in my house, she was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets spinning around her. I don't remember when it started. It feels like it was always there. My earliest memory is from when I was 5 years old. I had drawn a picture at school. It was a picture of our family. I used bright colors. I was so proud of it. I ran into the kitchen to show my mother. But when I got there, Miranda was crying. She was 7. She was crying because her ice cream had fallen off the cone. It was a small thing. But my mother was on her knees, hugging her, stroking her hair, whispering soft words. My father was rushing to the freezer to get another scoop. The kitchen was full of their panic. I stood in the doorway with my drawing. I waited. I waited for them to stop fixing the ice cream problem. I waited for them to look up. They never did. After 10 minutes, I quietly put my drawing on the counter and walked away. The next day, I found the drawing in the trash. It had ice cream stains on it. That was my childhood. I learned very quickly that there were 2 roles in our family. Miranda was the sensitive one. That was the word my parents used. Miranda is sensitive, my mother would say. She feels things deeply. Because she was sensitive, she couldn't handle disappointment. She couldn't handle waiting. She couldn't handle sharing. If she didn't get what she wanted, the mood in the house would turn dark. She would slam doors. She would scream. She would refuse to eat. My parents were terrified of her moods. They would do anything to keep the peace. My role was different. I was the easy one. I was the understanding one. If there wasn't enough money for 2 dance classes, Miranda went to dance. I stayed home. My father would tell me, "Avery, you understand, right? Your sister needs this outlet. You are strong. You don't need it as much." I wasn't strong. I was just quiet. I wore Miranda's old clothes. It didn't matter that they didn't fit me right. It didn't matter that the knees were worn out. "These are perfectly good," my mother would say. "Don't be wasteful, Avery." But when Miranda needed new clothes, it was an emergency. She needed the right brand to fit in at school. She needed the right shoes. I remember sitting in the back seat of the car, watching them carry bags of new clothes for Miranda, while I wore a coat that was 2 sizes too big. It wasn't just things. It was time. When I had homework trouble, my parents told me to look it up in a book. When Miranda had homework trouble, my father sat with her for 3 hours, doing the math problems for her, so she wouldn't get stressed. When I had a fever, my mother put a glass of water by my bed and told me to sleep it off. When Miranda had a headache, the whole house went on lockdown. The curtains were drawn. We had to whisper. My mother would bring her cool washcloths and soup. I became invisible. It wasn't a choice. It was a survival tactic. If I asked for something, I was adding to the stress. If I complained, I was being difficult. I remember one Christmas clearly. I was 12. I really wanted a bicycle. I had asked for it for months. I showed my dad the one I wanted. It wasn't expensive. On Christmas morning, there was a big shape under the tree. My heart started beating fast. I thought finally they heard me. We tore the paper off. It was a bike. But it wasn't for me. It was for Miranda. Miranda looked at it and frowned. I wanted blue, she said. This is red. My father looked panic-stricken. We can paint it, he said. We can exchange it. I looked around for my gift. My mother handed me a small box. Inside was a set of art supplies. Since you like to draw, she said. I didn't speak. I looked at the red bike. I looked at Miranda complaining about the color. I looked at my parents trying to fix it. Avery, my dad said, noticing my face. Don't look so jealous. It's ugly on you. Your sister needs the exercise. It's good for her health. I wasn't jealous of the bike. I was jealous of the care. I wanted someone to worry about whether I liked the color red. I wanted someone to be afraid of disappointing me. But they weren't afraid of me. They knew I would just say, thank you, and go to my room. So that is what I did. I went to my room. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I realized then that my feelings didn't weigh anything. Miranda's feelings weighed a ton. My feelings were like feathers. They just floated away unnoticed. As we got older, it got worse. Miranda struggled in school, not because she wasn't smart, but because she didn't try. My parents blamed the teachers. They hired tutors. They paid for extra credit programs. I worked hard. I got straight A's. I studied late at night. When I brought my report card home, my mother would glance at it and say, "That's nice, Avery. Put it on the fridge." Then she would turn to Miranda. "Miranda, honey, you got a C in history. That is so good. We should go out to dinner to celebrate." And we would. We would go to Miranda's favorite restaurant to celebrate her C, while my A's sat on the fridge under a magnet forgotten. I stopped showing them my grades. They didn't notice. By the time I was 17, I was basically a ghost in my own house. I cooked dinner because my mother was too exhausted from dealing with Miranda's drama. I cleaned the living room because Miranda is going through a hard time with her boyfriend. I did my own laundry. I bought my own school supplies with money I earned babysitting. I told myself it was okay. I told myself I was independent. I told myself I was preparing for the real world. But deep down, I was just a little girl waiting for her turn. I thought, maybe when I graduate, maybe when I turn 18, maybe then it will be my turn. I was wrong. My 18th birthday was supposed to be different. 18 is a big number. It means you are an adult. It is a milestone. 3 weeks before my birthday, I sat my parents down. I chose a time when Miranda was out with her friends. The house was quiet. "Mom, Dad," I said. "For my 18th birthday, I want to have a party." My mother sighed. She looked at the pile of mail on the table. "A party, Avery? That's a lot of work." "I will do the work," I said quickly. "I will clean. I will cook. I just want to invite my friends. I want to have music and food in the backyard. I want to celebrate." My father looked at my mother. "I guess that's fair," he said. 18 is big." "Okay," my mother said. "But keep it simple. We don't want to disturb the neighbors. And make sure Miranda is included." "I will," I promised. I was so happy. For 3 weeks, I planned everything. I didn't ask them for money. I used my babysitting savings. I bought strings of lights. I bought tablecloths. I bought ingredients to bake 4 dozen cookies and a vanilla cake. I made a playlist of songs. I invited 10 of my closest friends. They were all excited. The morning of my birthday, I woke up at 6 a.m. I felt light. I felt seen. Today was my day. I went downstairs. The kitchen was empty. There were no balloons. There was no happy birthday banner. There was no special breakfast waiting for me. That was okay, I told myself. They are busy. I can make my own breakfast. I started baking. I mixed the dough for the cookies. I played music softly on my phone. The house smelled like sugar and butter. It felt like a celebration. Around 10 a.m., Miranda came downstairs. She was wearing her pajamas. Her hair was messy. She looked like she had been crying. She walked into the kitchen and glared at me. "Why is it so loud?" she snapped. I paused the music. "It's my birthday, Miranda. I'm baking for the party tonight." She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so annoying. I have a migraine. My boyfriend didn't text me back last night. I haven't slept." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll keep it down." She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and slammed the door shut. "Whatever. Just stop making so much noise with the pans." She stomped back upstairs. My stomach tightened. I knew that stomp. I knew what it meant. An hour later, my mother came down. She looked stressed. She didn't say happy birthday. "Avery," she said, "can you try to be quieter? Your sister is really upset. She's having a crisis." "She's just tired, Mom," I said. "She'll be fine." "You don't know that," my mother said sharply. She's very sensitive. Today is hard for her. Today is my birthday, I said. My mother looked at me like I was being selfish. I know that, Avery. But we have to be considerate. She left the kitchen. I kept baking. I iced the cake. I wrote, Happy 18th Avery, on it with blue gel. It looked pretty. At 4 p.m., I went to the backyard to hang the lights. It took me a long time. I had to use a ladder. I set up the table. I put out the napkins. I was sweating, but I was proud. It looked beautiful. My friends were supposed to arrive at 6 p.m. At 5:30 p.m., I went upstairs to shower and change. I put on a nice white dress I had bought at a thrift store. I curled my hair. I looked in the mirror and smiled. I looked like an adult. When I came downstairs, the house was silent. Too silent. My father was sitting on the couch, reading his phone. My mother was in the kitchen, pacing. Where is Miranda? I asked. She's in her room, my father said without looking up. She's not feeling well. Okay, I said. Well, the party is outside. She can stay in her room if she wants. My mother stopped pacing. She looked at me. Her face was hard. Avery, she said. We need to talk. I froze. About what? We can't have the party, she said. I didn't understand the words. What? We have to cancel, she said. Miranda is in a very bad place. She's crying. She's hysterical. She can't handle people being here. She can't handle the noise and the laughter. It's too much for her right now. I stared at her. But, my friends are coming in 30 minutes. I already texted them, my mother said. My blood ran cold. You what? I texted them from your phone. It was on the counter. I told them you were sick. I told them you had food poisoning and we had to cancel. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. You lied? You canceled my 18th birthday party because Miranda is sad. It's not just sad, Avery, my father yelled from the couch. She is having a breakdown. We have to prioritize her mental health. What about me? I asked. My voice was shaking. What about my mental health? I did all this work. I paid for the food. It's my birthday. Stop being so dramatic, my mother said. We can do it next week. Or next month. When Miranda feels better. You always say that, I whispered. It's always when Miranda feels better. That is enough, my father said. He stood up. The decision is made. No guests. No music. We need quiet tonight. Now help your mother clean up this kitchen. It's a mess. They turned their backs on me. My mother started putting the flour away. My father went back to his phone. I stood there for a long minute. I looked at the cake on the counter. Happy 18th Avery. It looked like a joke now. I walked to the sliding glass door and went outside. I stood under the lights I had hung. I looked at the table I had set. It wasn't just a party. It was proof. Proof that I didn't matter. Proof that even on the one day that was supposed to be mine, Miranda was the main character. I was just the extra who was supposed to clean up the set. I looked at the unlit candles on the cake I had brought outside. I blew on them, pretending. Whoosh! That was the sound of my childhood ending. I stayed outside for an hour. I sat on one of the folding chairs I had set up for my friends. I watched the sun go down. I watched the lights blink. I didn't cry. I think I had cried enough over the last 18 years. I felt something else. I felt cold. I felt clear. It was like a fog had lifted. For years, I thought if I was just good enough, if I was just quiet enough, they would love me. I thought if I didn't cause trouble, they would appreciate me. But sitting there in the dark, I realized the truth. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for how convenient I was. They loved that I didn't ask for anything. They loved that I didn't compete with Miranda. And the moment I tried to take up space, the moment I tried to have a birthday, they shut me down. I stood up. My legs felt stiff. I picked up the plate of cookies. I picked up the cake. I walked back inside. The kitchen was quiet. My parents were in the living room, watching TV with the volume low. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Miranda came down. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't wearing her pajamas. She was wearing a silk robe. She had a face mask on. She held a bowl of popcorn. She looked relaxed. She looked smug. She saw me holding the cake. She stopped and smirked. Oh, good, she said. You brought the cake in. I'm actually hungry now. Can you cut me a slice? She said it so casually. Like she hadn't just ruined my day. Like she hadn't just forced our parents to lie to my friends. I looked at her. I looked at the popcorn. No, I said. My voice was quiet. But in the silent house, it sounded like a gunshot. Miranda blinked. Excuse me. No, I said again. I won't cut you a slice. This is my cake. My parents heard. My mother rushed into the kitchen. Avery, don't start, she hissed. Your sister is feeling better. Don't ruin it. She's feeling better because she won, I said. I looked at my mother. She wanted the attention, and you gave it to her. You canceled my life to make her comfortable. You are being so dramatic, Miranda laughed. She reached for a cookie on the plate I was holding. It's just a birthday. Get over yourself. I pulled the plate away. Don't touch them. Avery, my father shouted from the living room. He walked in, his face red. Give your sister a cookie. Stop being selfish. Selfish? I asked. I set the cake down on the counter with a thud. I bought the flour. I bought the sugar. I baked them. I cleaned the house. I asked for one night. One night in 18 years. We are a family, my mother yelled. We make sacrifices for each other. I am the only one who sacrifices. I said. My voice was rising, but I wasn't screaming. I was stating facts. I sacrifice everything. My clothes, my time, my grades, my birthday. And what do I get? I get lied to. I get erased. You are acting like a child, Miranda sneered. This is why you have no friends. You're so intense. I looked at her. I looked at my parents standing on either side of her, like bodyguards protecting a princess. I'm done, I said. The words hung in the air. What does that mean? My father asked. I'm done being the extra in your movie, I said. I'm done being the ghost. I'm done. Go to your room, my mother commanded, pointing a finger at the stairs. Go to your room and don't come out until you can apologize to your sister for stressing her out. I didn't move. I looked at them. I felt a strange power. They couldn't hurt me anymore because I didn't want their approval anymore. The room was frozen. The air was thick with tension. Then the doorbell rang. Ding dong. It was loud. It echoed through the house. My parents looked at each other. They panicked. Who is that? My mother whispered. Did one of your friends show up, Avery? I told you I canceled them. I didn't invite anyone else, I said. The doorbell rang again. Ding dong. My father walked to the door. He looked annoyed. He opened it, ready to tell whoever it was to go away. But he didn't speak. He stepped back. My grandfather, Edward, stepped inside. Edward is my father's father. He is a tall man. He has white hair and sharp blue eyes. He was a military man, and he carries himself with a straight back. He doesn't visit often because he lives 2 hours away. He usually only comes for holidays. He was holding a small gift bag. He looked at my father. Then he looked past him into the kitchen. He saw me standing there in my white dress, holding the plate of cookies. He saw Miranda in her robe with her face mask. He saw my mother with her arms crossed. Surprise, Edward said. His voice was deep. I thought I'd drive down to surprise my granddaughter on her big day. He looked around. He frowned. Why is it so quiet? He asked. Where is the music? Where are the guests? My father stammered. Dad, Avery is sick. I looked at my father. He lied right to his own father's face. Edward looked at me. He looked me up and down. He saw my clear eyes. He saw my steady hands. He saw the red rim of my eyes where I had held back tears. She doesn't look sick, Edward said. He walked into the kitchen. The sound of his boots on the tile was heavy. He stood in front of me. Hello, Avery, he said gently. Happy birthday. Thank you, Grandpa, I said. He looked at the cake. Did you bake this? Yes. He looked at the patio door. He saw the lights blinking outside in the empty yard. He saw the chairs set up for people who weren't there. He turned slowly to my parents. His face changed. It wasn't gentle anymore. It was cold. Explain this to me, Edward said. Why is there a party set up outside but no people? Why did you tell me she was sick? It's complicated, my mother said nervously. Miranda was having a hard time. We needed to keep the house quiet. Edward looked at Miranda. She was chewing her lip. She looked small suddenly. So, Edward said, his voice rising. Because Miranda is having a hard time, Avery doesn't get a birthday? We didn't want to upset Miranda, my father defended. Edward laughed. It was a dry, angry sound. You people are unbelievable. He turned back to me. He looked me right in the eyes. He ignored everyone else. Avery, he said. Answer me honestly. Is this how it always is? I looked at him. I could have lied. I could have protected them like I always did. I could have said, it's okay, Grandpa. But I remembered the unlit candles. I remembered the text messages lying to my friends. Yes, I said. This is how it always is. Edward nodded. He took a deep breath. Do you want to leave with me? He asked. I blinked. What? Do you want to pack a bag and come to my house? He asked. It's quiet there, but it's a good quiet. And I promise you, nobody will cancel your birthday. My heart hammered against my ribs. Leave, just like that. You can't take her, my mother shrieked. She lives here. She is 18, Edward said calmly. As of today, she is an adult. She can live wherever she wants. He looked at me waiting. His hand was extended slightly. It was a lifeline. Yes, I said. I want to go. The next 20 minutes were a blur, but I remember every detail. It felt like I was moving in slow motion, but my body was moving fast. Good, Edward said. Go upstairs. Pack what you need. I will wait right here. He crossed his arms and stood in the middle of the kitchen. He was like a wall between me and my parents. I ran upstairs. My legs felt light. I heard my mother screaming downstairs. You can't do this, Edward. You are undermining us. We are her parents. You are failing her. Edward roared back. I had never heard him yell before. The floorboards vibrated. You are treating one child like a queen and the other like a servant. I have watched it for years, but I held my tongue. Tonight? No. Tonight is enough. I went into my room. I grabbed my large duffel bag from the closet. I didn't pack everything. I didn't want everything. I packed my clothes, the ones I had bought myself, not the hand-me-downs. I packed my laptop. I packed my sketchbook. I packed my favorite shoes. I packed my toothbrush and my hairbrush. I looked around the room. I saw the bed where I had cried 1,000 times. I saw the desk where I studied alone while they took Miranda out to dinner. I realized I wasn't leaving a home. I was leaving a cage. I zipped the bag shut. It was heavy, but I didn't care. When I came back to the hallway, Miranda was standing there. She was leaning against her doorframe. She looked confused. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to things not going her way. You're not really going, she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. She thought I was bluffing. Watch me, I said. But who is going to drive me to school on Monday? She asked. Mom hates the morning traffic. I almost laughed. That was her concern. Not that she was losing her sister, but that she was losing her chauffeur. Drive yourself, I said. Or get Mom to do it. I walked past her. I didn't look back. Downstairs, the atmosphere was poisonous. My mother was crying on the sofa, acting like the victim. My father was pacing, his face purple with rage. Edward was standing exactly where I left him, staring them down. When he saw me with the bag, his face softened. Ready? He asked. Yes, I said. My father stepped forward. Avery, if you walk out that door, don't expect us to support you. You are on your own. It was a threat. He thought money would make me stay. He thought fear would make me stay. I looked at him. I've been on my own for years, Dad. You just didn't notice. My father's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Edward put a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy and warm. She's not on her own, he said to my father. She's with me. And unlike you, I take care of my family. Edward took my bag from my hand. He carried it for me. We walked to the front door. My mother called out, Avery, please, think about the family. I paused at the door. I thought about the family. I thought about the red bike. I thought about the cancellation. I thought about Miranda's smirk. I am thinking about the family, I said. That's why I'm leaving. We walked out into the cool night air. The crickets were chirping. The string lights in the backyard were still blinking, but I turned my back on them. Edward opened the passenger door of his truck for me. I climbed in. The seat was high. It smelled like old leather and peppermint. He put my bag in the back. He got in the driver's side and started the engine. It was a loud rumbling sound. A strong sound. As we backed out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. I saw Miranda watching from her bedroom window. I saw my parents standing in the open doorway, looking small and defeated. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I took a deep breath. For the first time in 18 years, my chest didn't feel tight. Hungry? Edward asked as we turned onto the main road. Yes, I said. I haven't eaten all day. There's a diner about 10 miles up, he said. Let's get you a burger. And a slice of cake. A real one. Okay, I said. I leaned my head back against the seat and watched the streetlights pass by. I was leaving. I was really leaving. And I knew I was never going back. The first morning at Grandpa Edward's house didn't feel real. I woke up at 7 a.m. out of habit. My body was tense. My muscles were tight. I lay in the strange bed, staring at the ceiling. The ceiling here was different. It had thick, wooden beams. The paint was a soft cream color, not the stark white of my room back home. I held my breath, waiting. I was waiting for the sounds that defined my life. I was waiting for the heavy thud of my father's footsteps rushing to find his car keys. I was waiting for the high-pitched whine of Miranda's voice complaining that her towel wasn't fluffy enough. I was waiting for my mother to yell my name. Avery. The coffee maker isn't working. Avery. Where is the iron? I waited for 5 minutes. Silence. The only sound was the wind moving through the pine trees outside the window. It was a whoosh sound, gentle and steady. I sat up. The guest room at Edward's house was simple. There was a wooden dresser, a small desk, and a quilt on the bed that smelled like lavender and old cedar. It wasn't a room for a servant. It was a room for a person. I put my feet on the floor. The wood was cool. I walked to the window and looked out. There was no perfectly manicured lawn here. There were no neighbors peering over the fence to judge us. There was just a vegetable garden, a tool shed, and acres of wild grass leading up to the treeline. I saw my grandfather down in the garden. He was wearing a flannel shirt and a wide-brimmed hat. He was hoeing the dirt around some tomato plants. He looked peaceful. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't performing for anyone. I got dressed slowly. I put on jeans and a t-shirt. I didn't worry about if my outfit matched or if it looked presentable. Nobody was watching. When I walked into the kitchen, the smell hit me. Bacon. Real smoky bacon. And strong coffee. Edward had left a plate on the counter covered with a paper towel. I lifted it. 2 fried eggs, 3 strips of bacon, and 2 slices of buttered toast. I stared at the food. Tears pricked my eyes. It seems silly to cry over toast, but you have to understand. I had cooked breakfast for my family every morning since I was 12. Nobody had cooked for me. Nobody had thought Avery might be hungry. I sat at the small round table and ate. I chewed slowly. I tasted the butter. I tasted the salt. It was the best meal I had ever had. My phone was sitting on the table next to my plate. I had turned the sound off the night before, but the screen kept lighting up. BZZT, BZZT, BZZT. The screen was full of notifications. I picked it up. My hand shook a little. The old fear was still there. The fear that I was in trouble. The fear that I had done something wrong. I unlocked the screen. 14 missed calls from Mom. 8 missed calls from Dad. 3 missed calls from Miranda. And the texts. There were dozens of them. I started reading from the beginning. Mom, 9:02 p.m. last night. Avery, this isn't funny. Get back in the car. Mom, 9:15 p.m. we are your parents. You can't just walk out. Mom, 10:30 p.m. Miranda is crying. She says you ruined her night. Are you happy now? You made your sister cry on your birthday. I stared at that one. You made your sister cry on your birthday. It was such a twisted way to see the world. It was my birthday. I was the one whose party was canceled. I was the one who was ignored. But in my mother's mind, Miranda was the victim because she felt bad about being mean. I scrolled down to the morning texts. Dad, 6:45 a.m. pick up the phone. We need to discuss the rules if you are going to live there. Dad, 7:10 a.m. Grandpa is too old to take care of you. You are being a burden to him. Don't be selfish. Come home. Selfish. That was their favorite word for me. Anytime I did something for myself, I was selfish. Miranda, 8 a.m. I need a ride to campus. Mom says she won't drive me. Where are you? You're so annoying. Miranda, 8:15 a.m. Hello? I'm going to be late. This is your fault. I put the phone down. I looked out the window at Edward. He wasn't burdened. He was humming. He looked happy. I realized then that my father was lying. He wasn't worried about Grandpa. He was worried about losing control. He was worried that if I wasn't there to be the selfish one, they would have to look at themselves. I walked outside. The air was crisp. The sun was warm on my face. Edward looked up and smiled. He leaned on his hoe. Sleep well? He asked. Yes, I said. I slept for 9 hours. Good, he said. You needed it. You looked like a ghost last night. He gestured to the garden. I'm pulling weeds. You can help if you want. Or you can sit on the porch and read. Or you can go for a walk. There are no rules today. I want to help, I said. I wanted to work. I wanted to use my hands. I wanted to do something that had a result I could see. We worked for 2 hours side by side. We didn't talk much. We just pulled weeds. It was meditative. Around noon, my phone started buzzing again in my pocket. It was persistent. Long buzzes. That meant a call. I pulled it out. It was my mother again. Edward looked at me. He saw the tension come back into my shoulders. He saw my face go pale. You don't have to answer it, he said. I feel like I have to. I whispered. If I don't, she'll just keep calling. She might come here. Let her come, Edward said, his voice hard. I have a lock on the gate. And I have a very loud voice. I looked at the phone. I hit the green button. I put it to my ear. Hello, Avery. My mother's voice was shrill. It was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Where have you been? Why aren't you answering? Do you have any idea what is happening here? I'm at Grandpa's, I said calmly. I'm gardening. Gardening? She sounded like I had said I was murdering someone. Your sister missed her first class. Your father couldn't find his blue tie, and he was late for a client meeting. The kitchen is a disaster. There are dishes everywhere. I closed my eyes. Mom, I don't live there anymore. Stop saying that, she screamed. Of course you live here. You are having a tantrum. We get it. You're mad about the party. Okay, fine. We're sorry. Happy. Now come home and clean this kitchen. You're sorry? I asked. What are you sorry for? For, whatever, she stammered. For canceling the party. We'll buy you a cake. We'll give you $50. Just come home. Miranda is making everyone miserable because you aren't here. So you want me back to handle Miranda, I said. Not because you miss me. We are a family, Avery. We need everyone to pitch in. I pitched in for 18 years, I said. I think I'm done. Avery. I have to go, Mom, I said. I'm helping Grandpa. I hung up. My heart was pounding like a drum in my chest. I had never hung up on my mother before. It felt terrifying. It felt illegal. But then the silence returned. The wind blew through the trees. Edward went back to hoeing the dirt. The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. I took a deep breath. I put the phone in my pocket. I knelt down in the dirt and pulled a weed. Over the next few days, the dynamic shifted. My parents realized that anger wasn't working. So they switched tactics. They switched to guilt. My father sent me a photo of the family dog, Buster. Text, Buster misses you. He's sitting by your door. He won't eat. It was a lie. Buster loved food more than anything. My mother sent me a photo of a dress she saw online. Text, this would look so cute on you. I can buy it for you if you come home for dinner on Sunday. It was a bribe. A cheap bribe. Miranda sent me voice memos. I listened to one. You think you're so cool living with Grandpa. But he's going to get sick of you. Everyone gets sick of you. You're boring. You have no personality. You're just a maid. I deleted it. The words still hurt. They stung like bee stings. But the distance helped. Being at Edward's house was like having a shield. Their words hit the shield and fell to the ground. They couldn't reach my heart anymore. By the end of the week, I felt something new growing inside me. It wasn't just relief. It was clarity. I looked at my life. I looked at the way I had been treated. And for the first time, I stopped blaming myself. I stopped thinking if I was prettier, they would love me. Or if I was smarter, they would notice me. I realized it wasn't about me. It was about them. They were broken. They needed a scapegoat to function. Without me, they were turning on each other. I wasn't the problem. I was the solution they had thrown away. It had been 7 days. 7 days of peace. 7 days of good food. 7 days of sleeping without fear. I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I needed to know if there was any hope for my family. I needed to know if they were capable of change. I sat on the back porch with my laptop. I had been looking at colleges. I had been looking at jobs. But before I could move forward, I had to close the door behind me. I decided to give them one chance. Just one. I knew what the core problem was. It wasn't just the favoritism. It was the presence of Miranda. Miranda was a black hole. She sucked all the energy, money, and love out of the room. As long as she was in that house, my parents would never be normal. They were addicted to enabling her. If I was going to have a relationship with them, the dynamic had to break. I opened a blank document. I typed out my thoughts. Then I condensed them into a single text message. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to explain. I just wanted to set a boundary. I typed, Mom, Dad. I am safe. I am happy where I am. You keep asking me to come home. I am willing to meet with you to discuss our future relationship. However, I have one non-negotiable condition. Miranda is 20 years old. She is an adult. She needs to move out of the family home permanently and learn to support herself. I cannot live in a house where her abuse is tolerated and rewarded. If you want me back, she has to go. I stared at the message. It felt heavy. It felt dangerous. Asking my parents to choose between us was the ultimate test. I knew the odds were low. I knew they worshipped Miranda. But I had to ask. I had to know for sure. I pressed. Send. The little delivered sign appeared. I put the phone down on the porch railing. I felt nauseous. An hour passed. No reply. 2 hours passed. No reply. My anxiety started to rise. Were they angry? Were they laughing at me? Then the dogs started barking. Edward had 2 big German shepherds. They were barking at the front gate. I looked at the security monitor in the kitchen. A red convertible had pulled up to the gate. It was Miranda's car. My parents had bought it for her 16th birthday. She was alone. She was honking the horn repeatedly. Beep, beep, beep. My stomach dropped. She had seen the text. My parents must have shown her. Grandpa, I called out. Edward came in from the living room. He looked at the monitor. He frowned. She's persistent, he said. She's furious, I said. Do you want to talk to her? He asked. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hide under the bed. Part of me wanted to run away. But a new part of me, the part that had been growing for the last 7 days, wanted to stand my ground. Yes, I said. But don't let her inside. Edward nodded. He pressed the button to open the electronic gate, just enough for a person to walk through. But not a car. Miranda got out of her car. She stormed up the long gravel driveway. She was wearing expensive boots and a designer jacket. She looked out of place against the dirt and the trees. I opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch. Edward stood behind me, just inside the screen door. He was my backup, but he let me lead. Miranda stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Her face was red. She was shaking. You witch, she screamed. She didn't use the word witch, but a much worse one. Hello, Miranda, I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. I saw the text, she yelled. I saw what you sent Mom and Dad. You want to kick me out? You want to make me homeless? I want you to grow up, I said. You're 20, Miranda. You're not a child. It's my house, she shrieked. I have anxiety. I can't live alone. You know that. You're doing this to hurt me. I'm doing this to save myself, I said. I can't live with you anymore. You are mean. You are cruel. And you use Mom and Dad like a bank account. She ran up the steps. She got right in my face. I could smell her perfume. It was too sweet. You are going to take that text back, she hissed. You are going to text them right now and say you were joking. And then you are going to come home and do my laundry because I have a pile of clothes waiting for you. The entitlement was breathtaking. She didn't just want me back as a sister. She wanted me back as a servant. No, I said. Miranda's eyes widened. She wasn't used to that word. Excuse me? No, I said again. I'm not coming home. I'm not doing your laundry. And I'm not taking the text back. She lost control. She reached out and grabbed my arm. Her fingernails were long and sharp. She dug them into my skin. You listen to me, you little. Pain shot up my arm. But I didn't pull away. I looked at her hand. Then I looked at her eyes. Let go, I said. Make me, she sneered. I don't have to, I said. Grandpa. The screen door opened. Edward stepped out. He was 6'2". He looked like a mountain. Let go of her, Miranda, he said. His voice was low and dangerous. Miranda flinched. She let go of my arm. She stepped back, nearly tripping down a step. You're all crazy, she shouted. Tears started running down her face, her weapon of choice. Grandpa, she's lying to you. She's the bad one. She hates our family. Edward looked at her cold tears. He wasn't moved. She doesn't hate the family, Edward said. She just hates the way you treat her. And frankly, so do I. Miranda gasped. She looked at me with pure hatred. Mom and Dad will never choose you, she spat. They love me. They protect me. You're just the accident. You're the extra. I know, I said softly. That's why I'm free. You'll regret this, she screamed. When you're all alone, you'll regret this. I'm not the one who is alone, I said. Look at you, Miranda. You're screaming on a porch because you can't function without someone to abuse. She didn't have a comeback for that. She turned around and ran back to her car. She got in and revved the engine. She peeled out of the driveway, tires spinning in the gravel. I watched her go. I looked down at my arm. There were 4 red marks where her nails had been. They were starting to bruise. Edward put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? He asked. I think so, I said. My adrenaline was fading, and my knees felt weak. She said they won't choose me. She might be right, Edward said honestly. But that doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. We went back inside. I sat at the kitchen table. I put some ice on my arm. I waited for the final verdict. I knew my parents would have to respond now. Miranda would go home and tell them a horror story. She would tell them I hit her. She would tell them I cursed at her. She would lie. And they would have to decide, do they believe the liar they worship? Or do they believe the daughter they ignored? I checked my phone. Nothing yet. The silence was heavy. It was the silence before the execution. But as I sat there, I realized something. The execution had already happened. It happened on my birthday when I blew out those unlit candles. I was already dead to them. This was just the funeral. And funerals, as sad as they are, bring closure. 2 days passed after Miranda's visit. 2 days of silence. I stayed close to the house. I helped Edward paint the fence. I organized his pantry. I tried to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't race. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I knew the verdict was coming. I knew my parents were drafting their response. I imagined them sitting at the kitchen table. My mother crying, saying I was cruel. My father pacing, talking about family loyalty. Miranda lying on the couch, holding an ice pack to her head, telling them how I had attacked her. On Tuesday evening, the email arrived. My phone pinged. I saw the sender name, Dad. I didn't open it immediately. I went to the kitchen where Edward was making tea. "It's here," I said. Edward turned off the kettle. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. "Do you want to read it alone?" "No," I said. "I want you to be here." I sat at the table. My hands were cold. I opened the email app. The subject line was, "Regarding your ultimatum." I took a deep breath and began to read. "Avery, we received your text message. We also spoke to Miranda, who came home in absolute hysterics. She told us how cold you were. She told us you threatened to call the police on your own sister. We are frankly shocked. We didn't know you were capable of such cruelty. We have discussed your condition for coming home. You asked us to kick Miranda out. You asked us to choose between our children. We are very disappointed in you. We thought you were the mature one. We thought you were the strong one. But this demand is childish and vindictive. You are clearly jealous of the attention Miranda needs, and you are trying to punish her for her struggles. Miranda is sensitive. She is going through a hard time. She is not ready for the real world. We will not abandon her just because you are having a tantrum. We are her parents. We protect her. That is what families do. We want you to come home. We want to be a family again. But we will not give in to threats. If you want to be part of this family, you need to apologize to your sister and accept your place here. If you cannot do that, then perhaps it is best you stay with your grandfather until you grow up. We hope you realize how selfish you are being. Love, Dad. I read it twice. The words swam before my eyes. Accept your place here. That was the phrase that stuck. They didn't want me. They wanted my place. They wanted the servant. They wanted the punching bag. They wanted the invisible girl who made everything run smoothly, so they could focus on Miranda. They called me selfish. They called me cruel. And they explicitly stated, we will not abandon her. They were choosing the abuser. They were choosing the person who made their lives chaotic, simply because she demanded it louder than I did. I looked up at Edward. He was watching me closely. They said no, I said. My voice was quiet. I'm sorry, Avery, Edward said. They said I'm jealous, I said. They said I need to apologize. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. I think my heart had already broken a long time ago. This was different. This was the feeling of a heavy chain finally snapping. For years, I had held on to a tiny hope. The hope that one day they would wake up. The hope that one day they would say, Avery, thank you. Avery, we see you. This email killed that hope. And when the hope died, the obligation died with it. I don't have to go back, I whispered. No, Edward said firmly. You never have to go back. I looked at the phone again. I looked at the reply button. I thought about writing a long letter. I thought about explaining every hurt, every missed birthday, every hand-me-down dress. But I realized they wouldn't read it. Or if they did, they would just twist it. They would say I was dramatic. They didn't deserve my words. They didn't deserve my feelings. I typed 2 sentences. I understand your choice. Do not contact me again. I hit send. Then I went to my settings. I clicked on my father's contact. Block caller. I clicked on my mother's contact. Block caller. I clicked on Miranda's contact. Block caller. I did the same for their emails. I put the phone down on the wooden table. It looked just like a piece of glass and plastic. It wasn't a lifeline anymore. It wasn't a leash. I looked at Edward. Tears were running down my face, but I was smiling. I'm an orphan now, I said. Edward reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was rough and warm. No, he said. You're just free. The next year was the hardest and best year of my life. The hard part was the silence. Even though I blocked them, my brain still expected the noise. I would wake up at night worrying if I had defrosted the chicken for dinner, before remembering I didn't live there anymore. I would see a text notification and panic, thinking it was Miranda demanding money. I had to unlearn 18 years of fear. But while I was building a new life, their old life was falling apart. I didn't ask for updates. I didn't spy on them. But Grandpa Edward lived in the same county. He had friends at the diner. He had friends at the hardware store. Small towns talk. And the downfall of the perfect family was big news. Without me, the illusion shattered. My mother, Elise, was the first to crumble. She had built her identity on being the perfect hostess with the perfect home. But she never actually did the work. I did. I cleaned the baseboards. I weeded the flower beds. I polished the silver. With me gone, the house decayed. Edward's friend, Mrs. Higgins, told us she stopped by for tea and was shocked. There were piles of laundry on the sofa. The sink was full of dishes. The lawn was overgrown. My mother stopped hosting her book club. She stopped hosting dinner parties. She was too embarrassed. She isolated herself. She became a ghost in her own house, hiding from the judgment of her neighbors. Then came the financial hit. My father, Daniel, ran a consulting business from his home office. He was a disorganized man. For years, I had been his unofficial secretary. I filed his receipts. I reminded him of Zoom calls. I proofread his emails. Without me, he missed deadlines. He lost important contracts. He forgot to invoice clients. 6 months after I left, Edward told me my father lost his 2 biggest accounts. His income was cut in half. And then there was Miranda. Miranda was the bomb that finally exploded. Without me there to absorb her anger, she turned it on our parents. Without me there to do her chores, she refused to do them herself. She got fired from 3 jobs in 4 months. The first one was at a boutique. She told the manager that folding clothes was beneath her. Fired. The second one was a receptionist job. She hung up on a rude customer and threw a stapler. Fired. The third one was at a coffee shop. She didn't show up for her shifts because she was too tired. Fired. She had no money. She demanded my parents pay for her gas, her clothes, her food. And because they had promised never to abandon her, they paid. They drained their savings to keep her happy. But Miranda is never happy. 8 months after I left, the news reached us. My parents were selling the house. The big, beautiful house with the pool and the perfectly manicured front yard. They couldn't afford the mortgage anymore. They had to downsize. They moved into a small, 2-bedroom apartment on the loud side of town. It was a humiliation for them. They cared so much about status, about looking successful. Now everyone knew they were broke. And the worst part for them? The apartment was too small. Miranda moved in with them. 3 unhappy adults in a tiny space. Edward heard the stories. The neighbors called the police because of the shouting. Miranda screaming that she hated the apartment. My mother crying. My father yelling. Finally, they did what I asked them to do, but too late. They kicked Miranda out. Not because they wanted to teach her a lesson, but because they ran out of money. Miranda had to move into a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. She had to take a job at a fast food restaurant just to pay rent. I heard she blamed me. She told anyone who would listen that her evil sister ruined the family. She said I abandoned them, but I didn't feel guilty. I thought about the canceled birthday. I thought about the red bike. They had sacrificed me for years to keep their ship afloat. I was the one bailing out the water. When I jumped overboard to save myself, the ship sank. That wasn't my fault. That was gravity point 2 years later. I was 20 years old. I sat in a booth at a coffee shop in Flagstaff, Arizona. Outside, the San Francisco peaks were covered in white snow against a bright blue sky. I had moved here for college. Edward helped me with the tuition, and I worked 20 hours a week at the university library to pay my rent. I loved the library. It was a sanctuary. It was a place of order and quiet. But unlike my childhood home, it was a warm quiet. A respectful quiet. I had changed. I cut my hair short, a bob that framed my face. I wore colorful clothes. I wore a bright yellow scarf. In my old life, I only wore gray or navy, so I wouldn't stand out. Now I liked being seen. I had friends. Real friends. My roommate, Sarah, was a loud, funny girl who studied biology. She knew my story. She didn't think I was dramatic. She thought I was a survivor. On my 20th birthday, Sarah and our other friends threw me a party. We went to a karaoke bar. I sang. Terrible songs. I laughed until my stomach hurt. Nobody canceled it. Nobody told me to be quiet. Nobody stole my cake. I was studying graphic design. I had a portfolio full of work. I was good at it. My professors told me I had a unique eye. I was happy. It wasn't a loud, explosive happiness. It was a quiet, steady hum in my chest. It was the feeling of safety. I was sketching in my notebook, drinking a latte, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I usually didn't answer those. But I was waiting for a call from a local gallery about displaying my art. I slid the bar to answer. Hello, Avery. The voice stopped my heart for a second. It was thin, shaky, and older than I remembered. It was my mother. I put my pen down. I looked out the window at the mountains. I didn't panic. I didn't shake. I just felt a deep, profound sadness. Hello, Mom, I said. Oh, thank God, she breathed. She sounded like she was crying. I used a friend's phone. I knew you blocked us. I just needed to hear your voice. I didn't say anything. I waited. Avery, please, she said. We miss you so much. It's been so hard. Your father isn't well. His blood pressure is through the roof. I'm sorry to hear that, I said politely, like I was talking to a stranger. Miranda is gone, she rushed on. We don't talk to her. She's impossible. You were right. We should have listened. We made a mistake. I closed my eyes. There it was. The validation I had craved for 18 years. You were right. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like ash. Why are you calling, Mom? I asked. We want you to come visit, she said. Her voice turned desperate. Just for a weekend. We are so lonely, Avery. The apartment is so quiet. We have nobody. We need our daughter. I listened to her. I heard the manipulation hidden in the pity. We are lonely. We need. They didn't miss Avery the person. They missed Avery the fixer. They were drowning, and they wanted me to come back and be their life raft. I can't come, I said. Why? She sobbed. We are your family. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I looked at my sketchbook. I looked at the drawing of the mountains I was working on. I thought about Edward, who was coming to visit me next week. I thought about Sarah, who was bringing me dinner tonight because I had a big exam. It means something, I said slowly. But family isn't just blood, Mom. Family is behavior. Avery, please. I have a life here, I said. I have peace here. And I worked very hard to get it. I'm not going to set it on fire just to keep you warm. There was silence on the other end. She was shocked. She had never heard me speak with such authority. I have to go now, I said. I hope Dad feels better. I really do. But I can't fix him. And I can't fix you. Don't hang up, she whispered. If you hang up, I don't know what I'll do. You'll survive, I said. Just like I did. I ended the call. I stared at the phone. I expected to feel guilty. I expected to feel the urge to call back. But I didn't. I felt light. I blocked the number. I picked up my pen. I looked at my drawing. It was good. It was really good. I took a sip of my coffee. It was still warm. I looked out at the world. It was big and scary and beautiful. And for the first time in my life, it was entirely mine. I had lost my parents, yes. I had lost my sister. But sitting there in that coffee shop, I realized I had found the one person I had been looking for all along. Myself. And she was going to be just fine.